and welcome to another episode of the Who Dat Jedi podcast. This is episode 233 for your record books. My name is Aaron, tongue-tied as always, and with me, as always, are the other two members of the Who Dat Jedi Council, Dave and Fredo. Hi, guys.
Hola.
Hi.
Have you guys missed us? Yeah, we've been gone for a week or so, and then
couple of weeks.
Yeah, and then we're gonna be off next week because I'm going to Nebraska. So, and yes, there's no technology in Nebraska. So, Kansas got all the technology, right, Dave?
That's right.
But anywho, no, we have a special episode though, since and because there was one big bit of news that came out in the last week. So I'm just going to throw it to Fredo right now for breaking news, special alert, cue the go. What are we talking about tonight?
Well, last week we got the reveal that officially that Spaceballs 2 is happening. We had a lovely teaser with beautiful crawl detailing how many prequels and sequels and other movie franchises and one Oppenheimer. It ended with there's been one Oppenheimer film. There's never been another Spaceballs in 38 years until now. And then the comedy legend that is Mel Brooks came on and revealed that, yes, Spaceballs 2 is coming to theaters in 2027. So, thus,
So tonight we are going to watch Spaceballs. So if you want to watch it along with us, it's on HBO Max. But if you have your DVD or VHS copy, whatever you want, but queue up to where just right after the MGM Lion's first roar, right around there, and you'll be kind of queued up with us. I always find it interesting when we do these. Somebody gets a little bit ahead of everybody else. It's like, I don't know, it's weird. But yeah, Dave said as we were coming on, it's like, this is pretty much just going to be us laughing and pointing at the screen. I think it's going to be a good opportunity to talk about Star Wars parodies. Just so we might not be talking about exactly what's on the screen, but so we'll just see what happens. So everybody's got the lion ready to go. And so on the count of three, hit play. 1, 2, 3.
Wait for it.
Click. And the lion is still roaring. All right, real quick, as it's opening up. All right, what is your favorite Star Wars, or maybe not? Well, yeah, okay. Two different questions. What's your favorite Star Wars parody?
This
one, okay.
Yeah.
We were talking last night at Finn McCool's. I would say Blue Harvest, the Family Guy one. I think that was really well done.
I probably don't think of it as an overall parody, like one project. I'd probably go with the Robot Chicken ones, just because there's been an infinite amount of times that I've quoted the whole Palpatine through, when he gets the phone call from Vader
Yeah.
after the first Death Star's blown up, and it's just like, when you go, well, who's they? What the heck is an aluminum falcon? Like, again,
So, and I actually was it you or Scott that didn't recognize the one I'm going to throw out here? Dave, are you familiar with Hardware Wars?
Yes.
And that was, I think, probably the first Star Wars parody I ever saw, because that was hot off the tails of A New Hope, because and that's when you had the Wookiee monster, which was, a brown cookie monster. You had who was eating the cinnamon rolls off of, it was, I've got the DVD of it. It's really bad, but it was, like I said, the first parody, but it was awesome because in The Last Jedi, Rian Johnson actually put an homage to it with the iron that is pressing the first uniform suit, because that was the Star Destroyer for, I think, the Star Destroyer or the Millennium Falcon. I can't remember which one, but from Hardware Wars. So anyway,
the gag here at the very beginning is an all-timer to me.
The
the
ship.
the ship that will not end,
It
and it
just
will
keeps
just keep
going.
going and going and go. Yeah. Oh my gosh. I love this thing. And I'll say up front too, I don't think it's just nostalgia that makes me love this movie as much as I do. My kids have seen this and they love it. Um, I think it just sort of appeals to that maybe 11-year-old.
Well, yeah, it's Mel Brooks. Mel Brooks is accessible to is not always that accessible, to
Right.
like some of the humor gets kind of really thick and kind of, it for kids anyway. This one, you're right in there with it. There's a little bit of sexual innuendo, but nothing, overt. But
I was
otherwise,
thinking,
the kids can stay with what's going on.
yeah, and I think that there was a recognition, particularly when making this movie,
Yeah,
that
the
this
ship
couldn't
is
be
still
saved.
going. By the way, sorry, keep going,
Yeah,
Fred.
Yeah,
yeah,
the ship's
yeah,
still
no,
going.
exactly, yeah. No, that this couldn't be Blazing Saddles. This could be History of the World Part One. This could be even some like the producers, the original producers with Gene Wilder. This was, because they're parodying something that has such a strong support base made of children and young people. They kind of had to tone down some of the stuff. Again, some of the stuff, not everything. But again, that's part of the dynamic of Mel Brooks. I was thinking back to something they made mention about one of Mel Brooks' parodies, which, or maybe it was another parody. It said, "You can only parody something that you love. You truly, if you truly love, whether it's westerns, or science fiction, like you get here, or even something like I'm trying to think, you know, like the producer theater. You have to love that genre in order to be able to parody it properly. As we get an introduction to the one and only
But
Dark Helmet.
I think I'm like about. It was 2 weeks ago when I realized that Dark Helmet was wearing a tie.
Really?
Wait, you didn't
I
realize?
never realized he was wearing a tie. No, and I love the way they played this character, where when his helmet is on, he's menacing and serious, and then when it's up, he's Rick Moranis. I mean, both literally and figuratively. You know what I mean? It's just. It,
Rick Moranis is coming out of retirement to film the
That,
sequel.
that is a big deal. That's one of the things that kind of has been coming out because, well, first of all, Mel Brooks is not writing this. It's Josh Gad who's taking the lead, and then several other writers, including the guy who wrote Detective Pikachu's, helping him with it. By the way, you went over my helmet. Love that line. Uh, no, sir, more to the side. Um, but yeah, Rick Moranis is coming back. Daphne Zuniga is coming back as Princess Vespa. Bill Pullman's coming back as Lone Star. Obviously, Mel Brooks is coming back as uh, definitely Gilbert. I'm not sure if he's coming back as President Scrooge, although why not? And then both Josh Gad and there's talk already of Kiki Palmer and Lewis Pullman, which is Bill Pullman's son, who was just in Thunderbolts,
Hmm.
being in this as well. So they already have some idea as to what they want to do, where they're going to do it, how they're going to bring this back. Which, we've had a sort of not a rash, but a good number of long-made movies from the '80s and '90s getting long-held, sequels. So it's nice that they're thinking about it.
now, does the Mr. Coffee joke work? I mean, is that's we're a little dated here. I always like drinking coffee when I watch Radar.
Everybody
Oh
knows
yeah,
that.
everyone knows that.
Everybody really protects themselves. I do love that little moment about the instead of being the force choke of the throat, it's the force choke of down there, and of course Mr. Radar. By the way, that's another thing. They lean into the whole Mr. thing. You see it throughout.
I love, by the way, that the entire plot, and I loved the Marvels, by the way, but the
Mhm.
entire plot of the Marvels was basically Spaceballs.
It was.
I
We
mean,
needed we need our own planet, so if we ruined our own planet, we need a new planet. So, yep.
because it used up all the oxygen. Hot, too
on
hot.
planet Druidia now. Um, First intergalactic temple reformed of the Druids.
Yeah,
Tomorrow, bingo.
that's another Mel Brooks standard. Is you're gonna have little things there tomorrow. Like tiny little sides.
Mountainous, a little bit like Alderaan. You almost wonder if Alderaan took some inspiration from Mel
Hmm.
Brooks here.
It surprised me again. George Lucas, gave his blessing and was involved. Okay, remind me, what were the two things he said they couldn't do for this movie? They couldn't use the sound of the blasters, did they? And then there was one other thing that they could not do. I'll look it up and
Yeah,
see.
look
Yeah,
that one
I
up.
was gonna say somebody Google that because I don't know.
Yeah, there was a couple of rules that George gave in order to give his blessing.
Man, okay, this is like Gen X heaven right now. You got the dad from Eight is Enough. You've got the
Joan Rivers.
Joan Rivers. You've got Prince Valium is the guy who was on Too Close for Comfort. Um, I can't remember what his name is, but this is just everybody in here is like I said. This is well, I mean
Daphne would go on to be in Melrose Place.
Oh,
that's
okay.
true.
The other thing George Lucas told Mel Brooks he could not do is they could not sell action figures. Even though they will see them down the line that they made Spaceballs action figures, they could not be put in the stores because they didn't want kids thinking that those were Star Wars action figures, since that's where the cash cows were for George.
And you said they couldn't use the sound of the blasters. Is that what?
I'm not sure. I may be wrong about that. Actually, thinking back, I may be wrong about that. But yeah, no, because other than that, I mean, it's the effects in here are done by Industrial Light and Magic.
I think Mel gave an interview at one point, and he talked about how that whole merchandising scene sort of spawned out of that stipulation from George.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can't
Yep.
sell action figures, so they went like even harder in the paint
Mm-hmm.
on the crass commercialism of Star Wars.
And this is just classic. The Winnebago with wings. Um,
I keep waiting for the Lego set of this.
you know, well, the bumper sticker. I love Uranus. Of course, that you see that at Chewbacca's all the time.
Chewbacca's.
Uh, but to get to that merchandising thing, I mean that's part of the parody, right? Because Star Wars, it was not just about special effects that people hadn't seen before. It was merchandising that people hadn't seen before. So yeah, it might have been like came out of that, but it was also it totally makes sense.
Well, I
Um,
mean, there's a certain element where George made it make his money because uh, off of the merchandising, because the movie became so big, but also, you know, at the same time, no movie had ever had a merchandising push like Star Wars had ever had before it. So, I mean, we tend to forget how much Star Wars influenced everything we see now. Like, you got everything from the new Jurassic World to Fantastic Four to Superman. You already can find all the toy lines and merch gear out on stores. Now, what didn't exist before Star Wars?
So, Aaron, one thing I wanted to ask you about this movie, I think you were a smidge older when this came out. Were you maybe not quite in high school yet, but
what year did it come out?
1987.
Pardon me for coughing into that hard. 87. So no, I would have been in ninth grade, eighth or ninth grade.
I think I was in fifth or
The
sixth.
Pizza the Hut, is that Dom DeLuise? Is that right?
I believe so.
Yeah. Anyway, go
Definitely
ahead.
the voice.
Sorry. So what was the question, Dave?
Well, but essentially, just did it hit?
Yes, we loved it. My
Yeah.
friends and I loved it. Yes,
Yeah.
100%. Of course, we were getting to that age where we understood sarcasm and we got the joke. You know, we love Star Wars. But yeah, no, but yeah, it did. It hit for us. Thought it was funny. How about? I mean, for you all, did it? I mean, or
Hmm.
do you think it's? I don't know. Dave, you said you were about sixth grade, so
Yeah, yeah, no, like again, like this is part of the reason why acknowledged my nostalgia for it earlier. I just think like I was the right age, um, and it really hit. Um,
well, and you were just far enough. It was perfectly placed.
Hmm.
It was far enough away from Return of the Jedi that you weren't. I think if this would have come out in 1984 or 1985, then it may have been too soon. But it was like at the perfect time where it's like, okay, we can make fun of you know the holy trilogy.
it was
Well,
so. Oh, go ahead,
mhm.
Fredo.
No, I was going to say, just it's 10 years from the release of A New Hope. So there's enough of a gap there where you can go, it had become kind of just accepted. Everybody kind of understood the jokes because that's all the other things.
Well, and sorry,
No,
sorry, right here,
no.
her headphones. I mean
Yes.
that's what everybody that was the joke that everybody made. It was either cinnamon
Hmm.
rolls or it was headphones. So yeah, sorry to
Hmm.
step on you
Go
there,
ahead, Dave.
Fredo.
No, no, go ahead, Dave.
I just found that the timing of it worked. I mean, worked beautifully for me. But I also Star Wars never really went away at that age or at that time. I remember it was it was on HBO like all the
Oh,
time.
every time we had a sleepover, a birthday or something like that, that was automatically
Yeah,
rented for at
right.
Blockbuster.
It
Yeah,
was just always there. So it never
Perrier.
really went away, and it was so in that sense, it's this movie still felt timely in a way, even though, like we said, it was 4 years later. Um, it didn't seem like they were late because Star Wars was just everywhere.
Yeah, it
It
was
was
still
always
still
on the
relevant.
TV. We were always renting it. We were still playing that stuff.
But again, to my point though, it was perfectly placed because I think if this comes out in 90, 91, maybe not so much. Maybe it doesn't hit as hard.
Yeah, by that time it probably would feel a little dated.
Yeah, because I mean, 91, yeah. By that point, Mel Brooks may have been already moving to like Robin Hood Men in Tights or something like that. Actually, no, it's a few years later, but still, yeah,
Actually, a little bit of a Star Trek reference here as well. So
because,
Snotty beam him down.
and first of all, I love the fact that the beaming reverses his head, and the fact that Scotty is actually, well, Scotty is not just Scottish, she's like super Scottish. So, do something.
Tell me why my
McConkey.
Hmm.
So we're really gonna have to watch the language though. It's like
yeah.
that's the
Hmm.
problem.
I'm not gonna be able to repeat my favorite. One of my favorite moments in cinematic history is when they're
Oh,
combing the desert. Uh,
Oh,
by the
yeah.
way, speaking of that, I saw a TikTok video recently because that actor, yes, that one, that actor was actually in Star Trek later on down the line. But he says that to this day, that's the most quoted line he gets at any convention.
oh, it was brilliant.
It's just, again, it's perfectly timed, proper, and like I said, because this movie's on HBO all the time, it's ingrained in our brains. So much of this movie is just part of the background. And then the salute, hail Screw.
My favorite line comes towards the end of the picture in the diner.
Check, please.
Not again.
Not again.
Not again. Which we'll talk about that
By
when
the
we
way,
get to that because that is John Hurt,
there
and I
was
love
there
that.
was a line. Just sorry, there was a joke where Scroob was talking to the twins, and
Hmm.
there's a joke that's that's very dated, going to go over people's
Mm-hmm.
heads when he goes, chew your gum. You know,
Because it's a double mint
it
twins.
was a double mint, joke.
It's kind of like I'm trying to think of something like a commercial that's it's popular right now, and then making that into a moment in a movie, and then showing that movie 30 years down the line without that reference, and people be like, well, what they're talking about. So there is a little bit of that, which is unfortunate, but also part of the dynamic. I mean, again, this is one of the aspects of parody that when you're trying to capture the essence of whatever, sometimes, yeah, stuff's going to feel dated because, yeah, it's no longer relevant. Like 1-800 numbers. Oh, yes, I love this. I said across the nose, not up it. Who made that man a gunner?
Yeah.
Again,
These are
look,
stuff we can't quote this, but this is
we can,
another one. I'm surrounded
but
by.
here's the point. If I start saying the lines, I'm sure all three of us can quote each and every line that follows, and his cousin go on, and everybody will be able to quote it. How many we have on this ship anyhow? I was left at the guy who turns around who's still seated down on the far left. Like, oh wow, okay.
Did you say ILM did the?
Yeah,
Are
that's
you
again,
sure?
yeah. So Brooks, let's see, I'm pulling this from the Wikipedia article while the movie's playing. So he said, even though yogurt characters mentions merchandising, Brooks' deal with George Lucas, no Spaceballs action figures be made. That allowed him to do the merchandising scene. Brooks also had Lucas's company handle post production. So in the original script, the description of Dark Helmet was the whole costume was one gigantic helmet. Then it got scaled back just to the one we see. Actually, no, let me correct myself. It was the bulk of the visual effects were executed by Apogee Incorporated,
I was gonna say
which was
because
found which was founded by John Dykstra, who was one of the lead guys at
yeah, he was
ILM
he was
during Star
yeah,
Wars.
he is the one that Lucas basically ended up firing.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
But Dykstra was responsible for the creation of ILM. So,
mm-hmm.
but they didn't have that big of an allowance on this though,
Yeah,
obviously. But I think that's also part of it. Is I mean, it like looks just good enough, but just rinky dink enough that it's kind of funny.
I
Just
think it really walks that line sort of perfectly between looking just really bad and
well,
kind of funnily bad.
because they were talking 1986, 1987 special effects. CGI is not a thing, kids. This is all models. This is all fireworks. There may be some cleanup in post, but this isn't anything like what we get now, which is going to make it's going to be hard to see maybe Spaceballs 2 if they have to kind of dial it back on the CGI and the computer graphics because they could get much nicer and cleaner stuff now than they ever could.
I hope they do. Um,
Mhm.
one of the things in this movie, one of my favorite, there's so many funny moments, but one of the funny things that we'll get later is when they talk about the stunt doubles. They
Yes.
break the fourth wall with that.
Oh,
But again, they're sort of poking fun at themselves with the makeup of those stunt doubles who look like nothing like the people they're playing.
by the way, we're not just doing this for money. That line
Oh
just
yeah.
passed. I have to acknowledge it. But no, it's like now when they say they got to jam them.
Yeah.
Again, look, do you see the special effects? It looks like something out of a TV show. Not a good one per se, but the jam.
Oh, and we got what's his butt
Like,
from Police Academy. Um,
oh,
Is it Michael Winslow?
Winslow.
that's
Yes.
right.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, this
Yeah,
was
this guy like made a whole career out of this,
well,
for the
well.
younger crowd out there that
However, this was kind of at the end of his relevancy because I mean,
Mm.
this is one of the last movies. He was probably because Police Academy was where he got his big thing. Did he do anything really after this? It was funny, but
I think he appeared in a couple of things, but again, like stand-up comic,
Mm.
all that. But yeah, like you, this guy, you'd see. It seems like, every other movie for a while there, you were like, oh, there's the guy that makes the funny noises.
It's almost like mandatory. You had to have him in your 1980s comedy. And you need to get like 5 minutes to do something like this, which I actually think this is about as good as it gets for him outside of say Police Academy, where he's actually playing one of the cast. Jam.
Raspberry.
It's only one man who would dare give me the raspberry. Which again, that's 10-year-old humor, but you know, oh, I love the camera. As I was saying that he pushes Colonel Sanders out the way, and then the camera just bang right into his helmet.
I do like that they set up the Colonel Sanders joke early on, and then
Mhm.
they paid it off,
Yeah.
a half hour
Like,
later.
they again, that's part of the. Well, I was gonna say, but just good comedic writing is, at some point you're gonna have to make that correlation for people because you've built it up, but
So,
it doesn't call attention to itself because it's happening in the middle of three other things happening.
wonder how much do you think Bill Pullman and Rick Moranis will be doing? Is this going to be like, hey kids, Mark Hamill's going to be in the new, Star Wars movie, and then you get, the last 12 seconds, I don't know. God, like Britt said,
That'd
I
be
hope they
funny.
put Mel Brooks in a hamster ball for the next, year and a half, because the dude is 90, what, 92, 98.
Yeah,
He's,
98, I
I think
think.
he's
Yeah.
98. Which, by the way, that's just proof how much having laughter in your life will keep you young. Um, but I mean, Bill Pullman and Rick Moranis are no spring chickens. So I mean,
yeah. Well, that's the other aspect. I mean, Bill Pullman, I'm not sure what's the last movie roles. Rick Moranis famously retired from acting after his wife unfortunately passed away in the early to mid 90s. And then he decided he just wanted to be a dad, take care of his kids. And he's famously turned down the opportunity to come back like Ghostbusters for the longest time. All the remakes and sequels have tried to bring him back, and he said, "No, I'm good. I'm done." So Ralph sent him the script to this, and he said, "Okay, I'm willing to come back to this." So there must be something in there for
by
him
the
to feel
way,
he can go do this.
so by the way, you said Bill Pullman's kid was in Thunderbolts. What was he in Thunderbolts?
Bob,
Oh, they're really okay. Did not.
that's it. That's Lewis Pullman. That's his kid. It's funny, you have Lewis Pullman, you have Bill Pullman's kid, and you have Kurt Russell's kid in that movie.
So I mean,
This
you could, if we want to put our tinfoil hats on here, kids. I mean, so you could have a Han Solo, Kylo Ren type of moment here. You know,
that that's one of the aspects that I think Josh Mel Brooks talked about. Josh Gad helping him with said because basically the focus is going to be the new Disney founded Star Wars projects, and he said I've not kept up with any of that, and Josh Gad has, and so he's got to help Mel be the kind of the Sherpa through all the new Disney Star Wars stuff.
I'm sorry, the butt armor on the troopers just kills me.
Oh, but speaking of that, is there any kind of like 501st for Spaceballs?
No, I don't know. I've seen a dark helmet cosplay at Star Wars Celebration. It was
I mean,
awesome.
we remember the roller derby girl last year at the running of the bulls.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, dressed as red dark helmet, which was awesome. But that one was made out of cardboard. But I don't know if you have the their Spaceballs troopers.
I'm sure
Uh,
some cosplayer has done it. I'm sure. Like I said,
mhm.
I saw a legit dark helmet at Star Wars
T-
Celebration in Chicago.
Tylenol, Tylenol.
Yeah, well, I guess.
Yeah, I don't think it would have worked if it had been a gigantic helmet. I love this Winnebago.
And again, Dave, there's jokes that the kids understand. Radar getting jammed. or just the slapstick nature of the car door hitting him on the head and stuff like that. So um, it is more accessible for a Mel Brooks movie.
Yep.
Yeah, like
Oh,
honestly, if you're gonna,
I
if you're gonna, go
I was just gonna say this is one of my favorite
ahead, Dave.
gags by far. The going to
Ludicrous
hyperspace
speed.
stuff.
Going to
Yeah,
ludicrous
ludicrous
speed.
speed is so good.
It still hits. That's what I love about it. It still works. No, and you're right, Aaron. I was gonna say to support you, and like this will probably be one of the first
What
ones
do we
Mel
got on
Brooks
this
movies
thing?
that
A
will show. And I
Cuisinart?
wouldn't interest.
Sorry, keep going.
Yeah, no, but I was gonna say, I wouldn't necessarily start somebody who plays in Saddles or Young Frankenstein. In a weird way, last week's just So I think this is a good entry point
There
into
you go.
Mel
They
Brooks.
paid off the joke. Ludicrous
And
speed.
they set up more. They set up more jokes by paying off that joke. They're talking about close all the shops in the malls, cancel the three ring circus, and you're going to see that stuff paid off later on too. So,
Mhm.
um, and
All animals in the zoo. Your
like
petty
that
excuse for an officer.
that almost feels Star Wars y in a way, right? Because we always talk about how Star Wars does such an amazing job of like answering questions, but then creating more questions. And this movie does such a good job of paying off jokes, but then creating more jokes while it's doing that.
Light speed, ridiculous speed,
Mm.
ludicrous speed. By the way, speaking of all this, the the there was something I was watching, and I mean they've always said, um, in A New Hope they say prepare the jump to hyperspace with the Death Star. In Rogue One they said we've got a giant object coming out of hyperspace, and it was the Death Star. Imagine now we take the plot from Ahsoka and the engines that they needed just to get you know across to that galaxy. Imagine the engines on the Death Star that to put it into light speed.
So
I'm sorry.
massive.
I mean, I'm sorry. Have they gone plaid yet?
Yes,
They've
they're
gone to
going for
plaid.
Okay. Emergency stop. Never used.
And again, all the characters in the background just kind of leaning in and holding it. And
You know, this they actually have physics in play. When they hit the brakes and he goes flying into the console. I kind of dug that about Ryan Johnson in The Last Jedi when they come out of hyperspace and Princess Leia's water bottle, rocks back and forth. It's something that you don't. It's never. It's you go to light speed and nobody's ever affected. I mean,
there's no lurch forward, no lurch back,
I mean,
right?
Han says, go, strap yourself in. We're going to make the jump to light speed. That's the last time that you ever hear about, it's going to go really fast now. We just take it. Anyway, they overshot us by a week and a half.
Because you're right. Because I mean, when you get to the point of the sequel trilogy, you're having people jump out of light speed into making a landing approach, which is how they get past circular bases shields. And then by episode 9, you have light speed hopping, or skipping. I'm sorry. And you're like, okay, you've established that this is a very difficult, um, dangerous maneuver, and here, you're kind of treating it like, you're go karting. So I don't know if that makes it any better or any worse, but it's interesting how quickly. Which, to be fair, in Star Wars, the rules only work as far as we want it to work.
Yeah.
If they don't work, we change them. So, okay, I do have to ask, was it an 80s thing about the Winnebago? It felt like everybody wanted to have a Winnebago in the 80s.
It was pretty much. We had a motorhome in the '70s, but it wasn't a Winnebago. But I mean, it was probably the most popular type of
Model,
RV.
right.
Um,
No, no, I asked it because I know so many folks, doctors and engineers and whatnot, whose retirement plan has been buy a mobile, an RV, and just drive the country. So I don't know if it was something that was back in the water that was the plan, and they just kept they just signed up for it, and this is just reflective of it. Oh, wait, Eagle 5 instead of Millennium Falcon.
Are you that far behind?
Am I? No, 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 no. No, I remembered. I just
Oh, okay.
pulled it out right now. No. Ooh, that's gonna leave a mark. That was ad lib, by the way.
I don't know where you're at now. I'm confused.
Okay, okay, they're having the argument right now.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Lone Star and Princess Vespa. So you know when Barf tries to get up to follow him and he
Yeah.
gets jammed up by the seatbelt, that wasn't planned. That was ad lib, including the line, "Ooh, that's gonna leave a mark." That was John Candy just rolling with it.
So,
Rest in peace, John Candy, by the
yeah,
way.
that's why I'm
Remembering.
wondering: are we going to have a any sort of backup Mog for that? But
It's always kind of interesting because John Candy is such a ubiquitous presence to 1980s comedy that I don't know. I mean, if you could have somebody else to step, even if you're not doing Barf, even if you're doing Barf's cousin Rolf or whatever, well, it wouldn't be Rolf, but you get my point. You know, I don't know if anybody would want to do that. It's like,
Ralph would be a pretty good name because Barf Ralph. I, I'll just make my own brief prediction that Josh Gad will play the
the
John
Mog,
Candy replacement. Yeah.
that would
log.
that would make sense. Yeah.
Mhm. Pick only what you need to survive. The hair dryer.
And again, this is now. I said I liked Blue Harvest, as the Star
Mhm.
Wars parody, but what it's doing is it's following each beat of A New Hope, step for step, and just this this is taking you know broad strokes. You have the love hate relationship between Vespa and Lone Star. You have the sloppiness of Chewbacca and Han Solo. You've got the pretentious droid. It's not trying to retell Star Wars. It's telling a totally different story with all and so that's why I think it makes it so good. Um,
Mhm. It's not trying to follow it step by step, but it is taking the essence of it.
yeah, it's not trying to remake Star Wars, and I bet which is weird because I said I really like Blue Harvest, but
Yeah, I
This, yeah,
think in
I think
this
it's,
case it would have been a mistake.
what's that?
yeah,
In this case, it would have been a
It
mistake to
would have
do that.
been. It would have been.
yeah, I think there's and that's also goes to the genius of Mel Brooks. He recognizes I can remix it and still keep to the essence without making it. By the way, here comes another iconic gag.
The producers, all of
Hmm. Mel Brooks
Mel
movies.
Brooks movies. They break the
It's
fourth wall again. That they're
mhm.
Also, another thing that dates the movie with the cassette tapes.
They're on stores before the movie is finished. You mean like instant same day release on streaming?
preparing to fast forward.
That's right. You're always preparing. Just go. Which actually makes me wonder how they did this. Obviously, they must have finished some of these shots and whatnot in order to put them in here for this scene. But how far ahead or how late did they film this in order to be able to get some of the stuff that they ended up putting in there?
Well, I mean, it depends on if they just put it together sequentially and didn't jump around like a lot of people do. Yeah, this is it's like what we all did in a Sears at one point. It's like if there was a camera in a TV and you're waving your hand around. So again, it's funny but it's even funnier if you live through some of this stuff. I wonder how popular is it with. I mean, it's popular with us Gen Xers. Fredo, you Gen X?
Yes.
Okay. So I wonder the younger kids. What do they think of Spaceballs?
That's the one with
Anybody?
younger kids.
Well, I mean, you said your kids like it, but I'm just saying. But I'm
Oh,
you know,
they love it. Our cousin Tara showed them this, um, and they just were instantly smitten. And I think it might be Liv's favorite movie. I mean, it's definitely up there for her. So yeah, it's cross generational.
Mhm. Again, kind of we were saying earlier, Dave. This is like not only perfect introduction to Mel Brooks' comedy, but if you're watching this at ages 10, 11, 12, it is right at your wheelhouse. It's a meatball down the middle in terms of just hitting you with the sense of humor. Uh, is just cute enough that you don't feel silly and enjoying it. Uh, but it's still all most of the stuff is going to sail over your head. You'll get eventually. You'll get probably when you see it at age 17.
by the way, with all due respect to Bill Pullman is Bill Pullman in every Bill Pullman movie. whether
Yes.
whether it's Independence Day or Wyatt Earp
I
or
wanted to talk pretty
Hmm.
much always. I wanted to circle back briefly to Mr. Rental because again, that's a perfect example of them returning to a joke and coming back and like, oh well, we thought this was funny, so let's do more of that, right? And it's very astute. I think when you look at like the Death Star or you look at like the Star Destroyers and you see all these monitors and you see all this machinery and you're constantly like wondering like what's going on all those screens in the background, like what's happening, what are all those people doing? um I think it's just as simple as that question and trying to answer it in a kind of a humorous way, and that's where you end up with Mr. Coffee, Mr. Radar, Mr. Rental, and all these things, and it's um
well, it's also the Tony
really fun.
Stark. It's also the Tony Stark joke. This man's been playing Galaga for the last 10 minutes.
Right, but
Yeah,
that's where they got it. They got that from right
yeah.
here.
Now, yeah, yeah. I don't know because we're at the slow part where it's now the romance in the desert. So this
Yeah, this is the part every 10-year-old boy's got like, boring, get on with it.
is the time where it's time for a bathroom break. Yeah. Um,
Mm.
I will say, and I guess I never watched that. Princess Vespa always annoyed the crap out of me, and maybe that's what the character is supposed to do, but always just annoyed the crap out of me.
Well, the whole thing with the luggage, I mean, it's hard to get over that.
Well, again, and going back to the whole 10-year-old boy mindset, she's written very much like a teenager would write a character, a female character in one of these movies. And, you know, she's she's a girl, ooh, icky, until she turns around and turns cool.
I will say this is the movie when um, a phrase entered my lexicon that I didn't know what it was, and I put two and two together and figured it out, and that was chastity belt. Isn't that in this movie?
No, that's in Robin Hood Men in Tights.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
This has the Virgin Alarm with Joan Rivers that we
That's
just
right.
saw, which by the
That's
way,
right.
I love that they threw that in there because first of all it gives dot matrix. By the way, kids,
Dot
dot matrix
matrix.
refers
Yes.
yeah, that's another 80s reference that you will not get now unless you're way into old tech. But
God,
yes,
does anybody have a printer anymore? Yeah.
I mean I do have a printer, but not a dot matrix printer. I mean we used to at school back in the day, but also it's very
I
much
had one of those all the way into college. So you're talking like mid nine late '90s.
mm,
I had a freaking dot matrix, but yeah.
yeah.
but there's something very satisfying about that sound, though.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
I had an inkjet printer, my first one printer I got. So
But I love, I mean, this is a way of recasting, kind of like we're talking about, adapting Star Wars without remaking Star Wars. I mean, I mean, Dot Matrix is a character who is there for a purpose, but also she's not necessarily a carbon copy of C-3PO.
dink dink
Yes, there's
dink
ding,
dink
ding,
dink
ding,
dink
ding,
dink
ding, ding.
dink dink dink.
Have you ever felt the urge to go down Main Street at Disney World going ding, ding,
I mean, it might have happened. Um, and of course, we're getting a little bit of Wizard of Oz.
Jawas, yeah.
Cross pollination
Yeah,
here. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Ding, 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 ding.
yeah.
But yeah, no. Uh-huh.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say it's again, you're getting John Candy, you're getting Joan Rivers, two comedic icons
Love that
in supporting roles.
they're giving oil to the droid. That was awesome. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
when did we get to Disneyland?
Mm-hmm.
That's really meta. That actually,
Mm-hmm.
that's a very funny line. Now, I mean, when they had no idea that Star Wars was going to be going to Disney. That's a very funny line now.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, here we are. The fact that they changed his helmet to a desert helmet is
Oh my gosh.
awesome.
I saw somebody who did a cosplay of this
Oh,
dark
this.
version of Dark Helmet, the Desert Safari Dark Helmet. I just went, that is amazing. You know, and then we get to the cave of yogurt. Again, you made mention to the Wizard of Oz, and they filmed this moment very much like Wizard of Oz.
Hmm.
Because
Yeah.
you got a Tin Man, you got a Cowardly
Well,
Lion, you
actually,
got a
if you listen to the Pod of Rebellion podcast, which I do weekly now, guys, if you haven't been listening to it, it's great. Um, but they have a guy on there who's their fact checker. It's like JC is just like an incredible Star Wars mind. So he's got a segment where he'll like all the Easter eggs and references and stuff like that. Anyway, talking about how Star Wars is very similar to Wizard of Oz. I mean, but Wizard of Oz is the hero's journey, just like Star Wars is. But yes, you do have a Tin Man. You do have a big furry character. You have,
Dorothy.
well, Dorothy is Luke and the dog is like R2,
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Here, the comparison is so much more stark and obvious, right? Like these four in particular.
yes,
And I think like part of the reason that they went here is because they probably got everyone in costume and were doing testing, and they were like, y'all look like you belong in the Wizard of Oz. And then Mel probably at that point was like, oh yes, we're going to have to do that, aren't we?
I'm just plain yogurt.
We meant to it all along, Dave. That was the plan. Please don't make a fuss.
The Force.
Yes.
That's probably the only time that they actually make a direct Star Wars reference when he mentions the Force. Merchandising.
Yep, here it is.
I mean, it is. It's a fair critique. It's like, really, George, were you making something artistic or were you wanting to make a billion dollars? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
He had the foresight, but then it also has become like, yeah, I don't know. It's a fair
It's a fair
little jab.
criticism at the same time.
The
I don't even think even
Spaceballs, the
George recognized
flamethrower.
the kids love it. By the way, even in the teaser trailer, when Mel is standing announcing it, he's got the sweatshirt saying "Spaceballs" the sweatshirt,
Yeah.
and we're all going like, "I need one of those."
Oh yeah.
So, okay. So do we know what the title is? It's just Spaceballs 2. Is it going to be The Search for More Money?
No, no, not yet. Probably not. I mean, I imagine they're going to. Somebody even said they should just call it Spaceballs 3, the search for Spaceballs 2. You know, but we'll see. Bed sheets.
I
Oh,
think they
it's
gotta call it The Search for More Money, right? I mean,
you announced it.
I
I
love the
mean,
fact that he's pretending to read the Richard Nixon, you know,
biography.
don't blame me.
Here you go, Aaron.
Are we being too literal? No, you fool. We're following orders. We're combing the desert.
I love how he uses the bullhorn on Colonel Sanders, but then starts yelling at people,
now holding up my throw that I got at Chewbacca's, which quotes the scene beautifully.
which we cannot say for obvious reasons. I also that it's just a little pick.
Yeah, I mean, yes. So well done. So well done.
Mhm.
You know, and yogurt also is it's it's just enough. You know, we get this little bit of it. They could have like totally overdone this character, um, but they're just kind of in and out. So I think it was well timed.
Well, and that's one of the things if you notice. I mean, like whether it's President's Crew, whether it's Barb, whether it's even Dark Helmet, who is in a lot of this movie, but they never feel overwhelming. They're never on it too much. It feels like it's just the right amount, which goes to great comedic writing and timing. You know when the joke's gonna get to be too much and draw away from it, from what you're trying to do, and you pull it back and give you just enough so it's still hitting.
Okay,
Because
so is there any significance behind the word Schwartz, or was it just to make it sound Yiddish?
more than likely. Because that's the other thing. He wanted a single word that, could stand in for the force. And as we're seeing him, Lone Star use the Schwartz.
Well, once again, they pay that off later, though.
Hmm.
Yeah, this is
You
true.
have the ring.
Upsy daisy, upsy daisy.
Yep, like he's he's wearing shorts with yeah. Sorry, everybody. There's a lot of dead space here just because we're just looking at the screen. But um,
Hmm.
I found it interesting that they used a ring. I wonder what how that came to be in the
In the concept of
I guess
creating something
what
for,
I'm
yeah.
saying is I would like Spaceballs the documentary. I would like to know, I wish I would be in some of that pre-production. It's like, okay, we can't we can't do a lightsaber. What can we do? And um, there's almost a He-Man element as well because he says I got the upside. He got the upside. I got the downside. It's like the whole Skeletor's sword and He-Man's sword. Was two halves of the of yeah. So anyway, at least in the toys it was. I don't know, but
By the way, that's coming next year too. They're finally they announced they finished principal photography on a He-Man movie. No clue whether it's an adaptation of the cartoon or a continuation of the Dolph Lundgren movie, another thing from
second
the 80s.
second most quoted line by Aaron. The first one is "We ain't found."
Leap.
The second one is coming up here because Vespa's being, she thinks she hears her father's voice, so
Through the Schwartz.
she's going to go find him. Vespa, come to me, and she's coming out of the yogurt's hovel, whatever. Sorry, and it's so you see what's his name? King what? Roland? King Roland.
Yeah. Hmm.
She goes to Daddy, and right
What
here,
do
fooled you. that that just struck me as so dang funny. And when I was, like I said, in sixth grade, whatever, or no, like I said, ninth grade or whatever, fooled you. That just was awesome. Sorry. Anyway, was,
Well, again, it's one again. This movie has so many lines that it just been repeated and recorded because they work, and we're gonna we get so many of them, and it's hilarious. But it's because they're not really trying. Like, we keep saying great comedic writing. They know what they're doing. By the way, did they park Spaceballs one in the tester? Is that what we see it pulling away?
oh, it kind of looked like it.
No, yeah, fortune cookies in space.
God knows, God willing, we'll all meet again in Spaceball 2, The Search for More Money. It has to be. Dave, we got
It has,
it. Has to be. They can't name it anything else.
It's a 39-year-old joke that they need to stick. That they need to stick that landing.
And if somebody's like, no, we got to call it, the Schwartz Awakens or something like that, somebody in the room has to be, no, it was already set up. This is what it's got to be.
I wonder how much it hurt Mel Brooks to be walking around on his knees while filming for Yogurt.
I don't know. Ask Tim Conway. Um, so, all right. Okay. So, as we say that, it has to be. How confident are you that it's going to be Spaceballs 2, The Search for More Money?
Wait, hold on, because this is one of my favorite scenes right here. But yes, I would say 60%. And he
yeah,
only
right
actually
around there, 60%. Yeah,
Yeah, I think I'm pessimistic. I don't think they're gonna. They should, but I don't think they're gonna. He's Levy's playing with his action figures. Yeah, which is funny because in this is what was kind of going on in Skeleton Crew.
Hmm.
Wim playing
Hmm.
with his. But of course, this is what we did. I
I
think
mean,
I think about that all the time. It's like with our Star Wars figures that we had, we were we weren't recreating the movie. We were creating our own, you know,
extended scenes, extended
scenes,
universe.
vignettes, whatever, interact, and that's just. And I don't know if our I guess Dave, your kids, do you see them doing that as well when they were growing up?
it's a different era.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I mean, there's a
Yeah.
lot more video games that, so
Mm.
they have different immersive things they can do. I mean, this is, again, this is what we did.
I'll see that Nathan is a little more tactile than the others. He likes building Legos right now. That's what he's really into. So
I applaud that. Oh, it's Spaceballs the toilet paper.
You know, and of course, we're also ahead of our time with video screens and things like that.
It's on a listed wall.
Not the greatest nose job, man. The entire universe in Beverly Hills. Uh, yeah, I mean, I'm just trying to figure out what. There are so many things they could do in this movie that would work so well with um, aligning to, like I said, The Force Awakens, Last Jedi. Oh, is this when they're
Remember?
getting the code for the
Yes, the
shield?
air shield.
Which again, I don't know how many people use locks on their luggage anymore. Um,
How many people use password for password or password 123? because they think they're being smarter than smart.
There's
Combinations.
almost a genius in it though, because you're like, nobody would think that you would pick something so simple. So it's like you're sort of trying, in a way, you're outsmarting people by not outsmarting them.
Stupidest combination I've ever heard in my life. Kind of thing an idiot would have on his luggage.
Mm. Which again, they're about to pay off. Oh, they're taking your highness, click, and they turn off the movie. Again, breaking the fourth wall again.
Yeah. However, I will say, I mean, like in Blazing Saddles, there's only a couple points where they do that. You know, where Cleavon Little turns and talks to the audience. I think once. And then of course it gets meta, you know, when they are in the movie studio and everything.
By the way,
This
that was one of those jokes that 10-year-old me wouldn't have gotten.
which one's
But
that?
seven, I bet she gives
Oh,
great helmet. Again, 10-year-old me, over my head. 17-year-old me. Ah, I get this information.
change the combination of my luggage. Um, but however, it did seem like this is more gaggy um, of a movie. Um, whereas Mel Brooks stuff is obviously always very funny. But it's like I said earlier, it's more cerebral. This is more gaggy. Um,
And like I said, I imagine that's by design. I mean, it has to be by design because, yeah.
how many of us have done that?
Hmm.
You're under arrest for illegal parking.
Which isn't that pretty much what Han and Luke do in A
Yeah,
New Hope?
yeah. Hey, can y'all
I
come up
mean,
here? Well, they have
hey,
this.
those are the guys who stole our uniforms. I kicked that bleep out. But yeah, like talking about gagging, look at the large key
Yeah.
Yep.
to unlock the door. Yeah, again, I think it was very much a dynamic by Mel recognizing, okay, this is going to be PG-13, but it's going to have a lot of 8, 9, 10, 11-year-old boys and girls
Is it?
showing up.
Is it? Was it PG-13?
Let me confirm that I believe it was, because this comes after. Da, 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 da. It is.
I mean, my money would be
Actually,
on
actually
PG
no.
13.
Actually, it was PG. PG.
Ah,
Surprisingly.
I thought that's what I thought. PG-13, you have to have a little bit more, you know.
Well, the other thing is, again, PG-13 had only come into effect 4 or 5 years prior, after Temple of Doom, correctly enough. And so some of those rules were still not quite sure. Whereas now I think people are more cognizant. Okay, this is a movie that's not over the PG line, but not quite to the R line. Royal Prisoners Only. I do love the fact they make the joke about her being a bass because she's singing very deep.
Beat the of us too. Like,
Again,
yeah.
again, that's the guys that took your uniforms. Which where do they get the extra helmets?
That was a good point. Way to find the loophole there.
They found helmets but no extra uniforms. Oh, I hate these movies.
So as we're watching this, how I mean, okay, so I mean, Dave has kind of said it with his kids. How does it hold up?
So far, so good.
It's not like this comes on TV, you know.
It used to, for the longest time, used to be like one of those Saturday movie on TBS, kind of on repeat,
But
like kind of like Blues Brothers and whatnot. But yeah, not so much now.
oh, here's the
Stunt doubles.
stunt doubles. Yeah, but Barf Barf looks like Donald Trump. That's funny.
Mm.
The snotty imperial guys. It's just,
Isn't this Ned Ryerson from Groundhog Day? I think it is.
oh, I think
There
you're
you
right.
go.
Yeah, I think you're right. Is Wait, he played the like Uber he played the clans guy and Klansman in Mississippi Burning. Yeah.
Hmm. You capture their stunt.
All right. So they blast the door and it gets fused shut. Here's something. This has nothing to do with the movie, but I've always wondered this about in Star Wars. How does blasting the lock both unlock and lock doors in Star Wars? You ever thought about that?
It's one of those things that's movie magic where you're like, the door magically knows what that blaster shot's supposed to be doing. Well, they shoot Princess Vespa's hair, and she decides to just go ham on them.
That was pretty good for Rambo.
Mhm.
Would people Do people know who do kids know who Rambo is now?
Probably not.
I don't know.
Probably not.
I mean,
Gosh, this
I just think
again, right quick. Paint up the whole long ship take at the start, right here, with President Screw running in.
I mean, I often think about that when you listen to music that was made in like the 80s, any music that was made a while ago, and the references um, that are made, and it's like if if you were writing a song now and you make a reference to something that is very current and very pop culture, I wonder if producers actually make stop and think and say, hey, you know what, maybe we should. I mean, does that stand the test of time? You know what I mean? It's like
I
I
think
don't
a
know.
lot of depends.
I just wonder if
Just
some of those conversations go on. I mean, so um,
yeah, I think it's one of those things where it depends on what you're making. I mean, there's no right or wrong answer. I think it's something like say Pink Floyd's Animals, which is very much a an album about late 1970s Great Britain.
no,
You
I
know,
mean,
here's
I'm not saying I'm talking about like direct. Okay, so let's take
mm,
let's take an awful song,
mm,
Funky Cold Medina, which is very problematic and very just awful in its tone low song. But he says he references Spuds McKenzie, Alex from Stroh's. Okay, first of all, Spuds McKenzie isn't a thing anymore. Stroh's, is that even a beer anymore? So you know what I'm talking about. It's like when you make like a very specific, not an allusion to, a historical event. That's gonna, except for I often wonder, does Animal Farm make sense to kids anymore? Um, but yeah, where I'm getting way off topic. But it's like
yeah.
some of these gags, like the Mr. Coffee gag. I wondered, is that a type of thing
See,
that it's funny in the moment, but 30 years later, is it? I don't know.
well, like here right now, they transformed Spaceball One into a transformer.
Yeah,
Dun 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 dun
yeah. I
dun
like
dun. Mega Man.
I love the fact that the timpani player at the end gets his own escape pod. That is
Mm.
the percussionist in me is very. Um,
But it's that idea, if you make that reference and you watch this movie in 1995, 6, maybe it feels dated and old. now after a whole series of Transformers movies made by Michael Bay, maybe it hits different to kids now because they know what they're referring to.
Okay, so the the helmet joke that you said 10-year-old Fredo wouldn't have got.
Hmm.
What about this one with the
Suck to blow.
yeah, I was trying to be good, but
I know there's no way to go around that. We have to make
we're
that
not
code.
swearing. We're not swearing, but would that
Yeah,
one have gone over your head? Okay.
more than likely. Again, 10-year-old me, yes. Over my
Seriously
head,
though,
no
this
idea.
is the Marvels stole the plot line from Spaceballs. That's just funny to me. That's just funny to me.
I love this
Every
moment. It's like, and how do we do this? Isn't that dangerous? Very. Plus, I have no idea how we're going to do this, which is usually the point in every movie where, the hero goes, because most heroic movies, like, oh no, the hero knows exactly what they're doing. It's I always love when a movie goes, we don't know what we're doing, we're making it up as we go along.
everything's been done and overdone and redone, and you can't. There are no new ideas.
Yes, but again, if you were sitting in like if if you're sitting in a meeting and you're like, "Hey, okay, so what's this new movie going to be about?" and you're like, and you pitch the whole idea and somebody in the room says, "Oh, you mean like Spaceballs?" Don't you think you would stop and go, okay, maybe let's tweak some things."
Hmm. Well, it's kind of like you remember what was it? The James Bond movie Die Another Day, which when it came out, it was famous because it was all about they were building a giant space laser, and everybody immediately, the moment I remember the moment that that was revealed in theater, the thought that popped in everybody's head was Austin Powers. And you're like, how can you make this kind of plot? How can you write this after Austin Powers?
Well,
You know,
it was kind of like Aquaman and the sharks with freaking laser beams on their head. I mean,
mhm. Pray to God, pray to God.
Do you think the maid was set up solely for the Planet of the Apes gag?
I hope so. I hope so.
yeah, I don't
Because
know.
it's just perfectly made. Because here's the thing, you're not thinking that at this point right now. That is nowhere in your brain. That is no,
No,
that is not something you're considering. So when it happens, it's just because again, this is a Star Wars parody, but you've got references to 2001. You've got references to Star Trek, and references to Wizard of Oz.
Transformers.
It's Transformers.
So
There's
that's why I said I want Spaceballs the documentary.
because that's usually the mark of good parody is. It's not just that they're parodying one thing, they're combining multiple things in order to make something work. He's going down there.
Yeah,
I wouldn't.
John Candy was just. You said rip John Candy, rest in peace, John Candy. He was a comedic genius. I mean, his delivery, and in here it was again just enough. If they would have had too much of barf, then it would have been, but it's just enough. But he was just such a comedic genius.
Mhm. And
Oh,
that's kind
here
of
we go.
the great thing. It's him
What are
working
you?
with Mel
What
Brooks,
the
with
hell are
Rick
you
Moranis.
doing?
Yeah,
The Vulcan nerve pinch? Oh, stupid! Much too high.
they're down here.
The shoulder meets the neck. Yeah.
No unauthorized or authorized personnel.
I would say that when I first saw this movie, I had not consumed enough Star Trek to understand the Vulcan neck pinch joke. I eventually did.
Do
Yes.
not push unless you really, really mean it. Self destruct button.
Spaceballs the towel. Shaving cream. Again, leaning into the gags.
Yeah, I will say that this sequence kind of drug on a little bit when they are getting into it. But anyway, um,
Again, leaning into a whole turn off the
all right,
tractor beam.
we're coming up on probably actually the most quoted by anybody. Before you die,
Quoted
there's
just last
something
Sunday.
you should know about us. What? I am your father's brother's nephew's cousin's former roommate. What does that
What
make
does that make
us?
us?
Absolutely nothing.
No, I love that on Sunday, but it was happy father's, brother's, cousin's, nephew's, former roommate day.
I see your Schwartz is as big as mine.
And
That
of,
one did not sail by my over my head
and of course,
at each time.
where they're holding, yeah, it's. But I do find it interesting that the bad guys got the green saber and the good guys got the red saber.
Like just mix it up just enough.
Hmm.
I love this coming up where he well first of all, okay, break the fourth wall. He kills the
Right.
camera guy or the sound guy. He did it.
Mm. Yep.
And then, but I love how he puts his hand on the helmet and then just like you did
Uh,
with your little brother or whatever, your friends.
isn't this when they get their shorts twisted?
Yeah, I hate it when I get my Schwartz twisted.
Twisted, yep. Maybe if I put. See, this is the kind of stuff you wouldn't get in epic duels between the forces of all good and all evil.
There are a lot of good moments though, like uh,
Hmm.
where he's hitting him in the helmet and he can't do anything. And then, like Aaron said, where he just puts his hand on his helmet and keeps him at bay with that. And I like how it ends too when he takes the ring from him. It's so funny.
Yeah,
And it's got
Good
one of my
is
favorite
dumb.
lines. Yep, that is one of my favorite lines in any movie. Now you see why evil will always triumph. Because good is dumb.
if there's one thing I despise, it's a fair fight. But if I must,
Hmm.
then I must. May the best man win. Put her there. Can't believe he fell for the oldest trick in the book. What a goof. What's with you,
What's with
man? Here, let me get back to you. Oops.
He is such a troll, and I love that. Evil will always triumph because good is dumb.
Yeah, that is a classic line. Yes.
Okay, another 80s reference, The Wild World of Sports, which for those of you who weren't around, there was a time when you only got certain sports on TV on once a week on ABC, and they would just show you the thrill of victory and the agony of defeat. And you see, hey, this week we had the Kentucky Derby, and there was this snow race in Sweden and whatever. Because back then you didn't used to get
You know,
24-hour channels all the time.
100%. I mean, think about how spoiled we all are now. It's like if I want to watch, Nebraska football, there's a channel for that. I can watch any game I want. It used to be like if you got to see one, even living in Lincoln, Nebraska, if you got to see one game, so yeah, Wild World of Sports. That's funny.
Where the heck are we, Paris?
He made a
But I love
Cracker
it.
Jack joke too, and like,
Yeah,
do they still sell Cracker
I think they
Jacks?
do. I think they do.
Baseball stadiums, they will still sell them.
It's irreversible, like my raincoat.
Hmm.
All personnel proceed to the escape pods. Close
Close down
down
the
the circus.
circus.
Evacuate the zoo.
The absolute chaos here. This really appealed to my 11-year-old brain.
This is very similar to when they broke into the other
The French
sound
mistake.
studio. You know, the yeah, at the end of Blazing Saddles.
Hmm.
Again, I love. Yeah, a bear gets an escape pod, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
and the timpani
The last
player.
one.
I'm the bearded lady. Who are
Who
you?
are you?
One of the
One of the.
freaks?
Yep. Where do you think you're going?
Pizza to go.
There's a timpani player. He made sure to take his drum with him too. So.
That's absolutely. That's just like I said. As a percussionist, that makes me happy. But yeah, then the bear gets one.
So like these are the bad guys, right? Like
Hmm.
absolutely, and there's nothing redeemable about any of these people. But like I still remember as a young kid watching this and being like really wrapped up in them like not being able to escape,
You
and it was like,
fat
oh my
bearded.
gosh.
Sorry.
Come back, you fat bearded leap. Yep. Last escape pod.
Just watching this unfold,
So
it was just disconcerting,
I'm, I'm,
like, oh my gosh,
I'm
they're not going to
actually
be able
in.
to get out.
I'm actually enthralled right now because I'm wondering. I couldn't remember if Scroob and Dark Helmet survive. I couldn't remember. It's been
Mhm.
forever since I've seen it. Is it confirmed that they survive?
Oh yeah, because we get the gag at the end.
The Planet of the Apes gag.
Yeah,
Out
Oh,
of
that's right.
order.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, and there. By the way, this is why I'm surprised that this was PG, not PG-13, because we get our one F-bomb right here, which is usually a sign of PG-13. Six. What happened to seven? Just kidding.
Where's the F bomb?
Right there, after they pull the out of order, even in the future, nothing works. Have a nice day. Thank you. And there you go, kablooey.
They got an F bomb in, and they still managed a PG rating.
Which
Pretty
again kind of
impressive.
tells me the rules back then weren't quite as strict or as certain because they were still kind of figuring things out.
Okay. There needs to be a counter as how many times the strap of her dress falls off her shoulder. You know, in this movie, it's several times.
That's the other thing. I mean, most of these characters stay in one costume throughout the whole of the movie, which is more akin to what you call it, A New Hope, than any of the following Star Wars sequels. And that's where we get the news that Pizza Hut was found dead earlier.
Backseat of his stretched limo. Came locked inside his car and ate himself to death.
Rocky 5000. Even back then, they knew they were going to keep making Rocky movies. Wow. Yeah, that feels very Alderaan-ish. Druidia is very much Alderaan. Which makes me that's gonna make me want to watch Obi-Wan Kenobi and see that and go like, oh, that is Druidia.
There you go.
Now, to be fair, Ralph McQuarrie did draw a lot of concept, you know,
Hmm.
paintings of Alderaan. So is that Bob Newhart?
For what?
I don't know.
For
The guy in green. I don't know. He just
might have
was
been.
Looked
smiling.
like him.
It kind of looked like him.
That was Jim J. Bullock as
Jim J. Bullock. That's it.
Prince.
Yeah, it says Prince
That,
Valium.
that's been Valium, which
Yeah.
again, little gag. Oh, here you go.
Here we go, Dave.
Oh yeah, the diner scene, man. This is my jam.
I always love that they got John Hurt to come back and do this.
Well, and it's very. I mean, Dex's Diner. So
Hmm. That's right, the space soup and the space fish.
Change mine
You
to
need
the
to,
soup.
yeah. Anytime somebody tells me to have the special, I just go like, "You want to change yours to the soup?"
I'll have the cleavage, the special.
Hmm.
Tail has a mind of its own. Yeah.
Hmm. Which is, as dog owners, you know that to be certainly true. Yep, there you go. Here it comes.
All right. So explain to everybody, Dave. I mean, I know the reference. This is not a trick to explain it, but what's going on here, in case people don't know.
Right. This is well, there's two things at play here ultimately. You've got a reference to the film Alien, and you also have a reference to Looney Tunes
Yes.
Michigan J. Frog.
Yeah.
It's the marriage of the two that works so brilliantly for me. I also think that
Bring him
this guy
some
gets an
water.
underrated line here.
Water, Mike. Bring this guy some Pepto Bismol.
Yes.
That's what it's like. What are you ordering? He had the special. Good. By the way, if you notice, the group of people who are with John Hurt in that scene, the other cast members, they're in the same costumes as the cast of Alien.
Yep.
Even that little bit of reference to the movie, like the girls playing Ripley is wearing the same outfit Ripley is. If some of the other same thing with the other characters, and then I love that little line by John Hurt. Oh no, not again.
Yep.
Hello, my baby. Hello, my darling. Hello.
And the actors are all selling it too, which is
Exactly.
great. They're all just horrified.
Hmm.
Check,
Check,
please.
please. Today, the royal wedding. Take two. And it's kind of just, this is kind of beginning to wrap up the whole movie together. Okay, you know, we know they had a moment, they've adventured and fallen in love. He didn't take the million bucks, space bucks reward.
Just took 200. I love the space bucks. That just makes me laugh. Yeah, I know, Sophie. I wonder. So, were there maybe more? Could they not say credits? I don't know. I don't know what kind of because it is. You're not going to get sued for a parody,
Mm-hmm.
unless it becomes like an. I don't know. I wonder. Like,
Credits is boring though, right? Like, let's
it's
come up with a funnier
right.
term for it. And Spacebucks just sounds like kind of silly.
Well, and that's the thing. It sounds like they didn't spend a lot of time thinking about it, and that's about the kind of energy you need to have for this. Like it should be obvious. And then, of course, we got to hear the reveal that Lone Star is a prince, that his dad is a king, his mom was a queen, which makes me think: is this where George pulled that Luke and Leia's mom was a queen? Special kind of feel in your glove compartment.
So yeah, in the pantheon of Star Wars parodies, this is number one for me by like a wide margin. Wide margin. So I was really, really happy to see the announcement last week. I thought the trailer was basically perfect with the crawl and the
Yes, it was.
referencing every sequel and money grab that we've seen over the last several decades. It's just
because
Yeah.
in many, I mean, kind of like we're talking about the merchandising scene, but it's also that's what it's parodying. It's parodying movies at the time. That's one of the things. I mean, Mel Brooks is a lover of movies, and you watch anything whether it's Blazing Saddles, Young Frankenstein, you see that there's a love for the movies that he's parodying, but it's also referencing where movies are at that moment. And this felt proper, like we were saying in 1987, for where cinema was and kind of had it, and that's why it feels appropriate that he's coming back right at a time when it feels like it's more I was going to say more commercialized because it's always been commercialized. It's always been about making money first. So, and by the way, Aaron, here you go.
There's Planet. Yeah, I totally forgot. I knew
Here's
there
what,
was.
yeah, but not just that. Here's what,
Yeah, they crawl out. Yeah.
there goes the planet.
Spaceballs.
Well, those are authentic planet, original Planet of the Apes costumes. Those are POG marks.
All right, so Mel Brooks, y'all, free favorite for you is Blazing Saddles, probably. Yeah,
Yes. Yeah.
yeah. My favorite's actually Silent Movie. I don't know if you guys seen that one or not.
Yes, yes.
I
Where the
I
only guy
love
who
that.
speaks it, yeah, the only one who speaks is Marcel Marceau.
Yes.
I love how the priest is all. May I finish, please?
Well,
Yeah,
I
so
will
if
say,
someone's seen the, so I was just gonna say, if someone's seen this movie and they've not seen other Mel Brooks movies, they really need to see some other Mel Brooks movies.
I'm trying to conduct a wedding here, which has nothing to do with love.
To that point, Dave, it was funny because as as a band director and my wife as a teacher, we saw it and we hope it still goes on. But there's like, especially in high school band and art and the kind of that nerdy culture, it's like the Holy Grail is Monty Python, the Holy Grail is known by everybody, and you know but to watch them discover movies, I remember two kids in my band were sitting there laughing so hard because that previous weekend they watched Young Frankenstein, and they were like reenacting the Igor with the French horn. That just struck them as so damn funny. Um, so it is fun to watch kids discover. I remember again growing up, it was like we discovered music that my dad grew up with. It's like when you Louie and Runaway, and I don't know. So I think it'll be fun to live vicariously through you when your kids start, maybe discovering some of these 80s, 90s movies that, not that mom and dad said, hey kids, you got to sit down and watch Clerks, but when they like
Discover it on
discover
their own.
Clerks on their own, you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah.
But I gotta mention just right quick. This is where we get the short version of a wedding. Do you? Yes. Do you? Yes. Fine. You're married. Kiss me. Which again, another little moment that I was going like, oh, that's wonderful. It makes me laugh.
All right. So,
Yeah. No. One thing, and I always tell people like, go on YouTube and you'll see people like reacting or watching a movie and finding movies from the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and having those visceral reactions to stuff we know. Like the other day, I was watching a kind of a compilation of people just reacting to the scene in Jaws where the shark comes out and Roy Scheider delivers that you're going to need a bigger boat line. And to us, it's like, okay, we've seen that 1,000 times. But people seeing it for the first time are freaking out, like, oh my God, it came out of nowhere. It's like, you know, you kind of forget that these movies have certain kind of power and kind of presence to them because we are so accustomed to them. We've grown up with them. We've lived with them.
another, I guess I said Blue Harvest, but now I'm wondering if my favorite Star Wars parody might be the fan film Troops. That is
But
awesome. That is
particularly when it came,
awesome.
because that was what, 98,
That was it
97,
was
early 2000s.
like about 98, 99, I think. So
Yeah. Yeah, it's one
so
of those
what's
things where it's like it came right at the right moment and it was great. And I love Troops because it was taking the cops element, put it in Star Wars, and you're like,
final
this is genius.
final little thing? Because I said, what's the best? Your favorite Star Wars parody. What's your least favorite Star Wars parody? What's a bad Star Wars parody?
Hmm. I
It's
can't
tough
think of.
to figure out if there is one.
That's the thing. Yeah, go ahead, Dave.
Got sued into oblivion before it ever happened, had a chance, right? So
Probably.
I think like that's a lot
I
out
don't
there.
think and if there is, see, and that's one of the things you recognize because there are a lot of bad parody movies out there. But what you tend to recognize is there's a difference between a good one and a bad one. It's kind of like I said earlier, is the good ones love the stuff that they're parodying. So it's coming from a place of, I grew up with these movies. These are awesome. I love these. Let me make fun of them in a way that honors and respect them. Whereas bad parodies just kind of, let's just make a quick gag and a quick buck and
Yeah.
not really consider where the heck any of this is coming from. So I find that, if it's a bad parody, it just doesn't stick in the mind. It just goes, oh, it's a bad movie. Get rid of it.
Well, I gotta say this was a fun night to sit there and watch Spaceballs. It's been forever and a day since I've done that. So yeah. So
Mhm.
any final thoughts before we sign off, or if we? I mean, there's apologize for the dead spots, but that was just when it was either the slow romantic stuff or couldn't say the words that were on the screen. But yeah, I mean, be fun to see where this what this sequel does. So yeah, any final thoughts, or shall
I
we
would
say
just
who dat?
say what I said before is just check out more Mel Brooks if you haven't. Uh, we mentioned Blazing Saddles. The producers is brilliant. I love Silent Movie. That's my favorite of his,
I mean,
and
History of
he's
the
got
World
more.
is, yeah.
Yeah, it's
Young Frankenstein,
Now,
History of the
oh,
World,
I mean, yeah,
Robin Hood Men in Tights.
it's one of those things.
What I love.
I
Mhm.
mean, it's tough because we certainly live in a different, you know, sensibility than 1970s, 80s, 90s. So it's like if you've never watched Blazing Saddles, you got to make sure you set yourself up for the context of what it is doing, because I think a lot of that humor would not. Um, yeah, but anyway, we can. It's but even a lot of the Mel Brooks stuff, I mean, it can get like I said, a little dicey from time to time. So
What I would say is, particularly with something like Blazing Saddles, it helps if you've done a bit of the homework, by
right.
which I mean, watch some of those classic westerns. Watch the John Ford stuff. Watch the stuff with Randall Scott, who gets
Well,
name dropped in Blazing Saddles. Because once you see some of that stuff, and then like you go to Blazing Saddles, you understand that everything that Mel Brooks is putting in there is disseminating 40 years of westerns into one movie, making fun of the entire genre.
so yeah, we can. We'll do a special episode someday of just Blazing Saddles. Just that's be for Patreon. So anyway, um, until then,
Poor,
we
poor
will.
Dave, poor Dave won't have to be editing everything else we're saying every time we're quoting a movie.
Until then, we will say who dat.
who
With
dat?
that,
Have a great week, everybody.
McConkey.